My name is Katja Lasch. I'm the director of the German Center for Research Innovation and also of the German Academic Exchange Service. I'm based in Delhi, the German Academic Exchange Service, better known as DAAD in the region. I'm glad that you all here. I see that the participants are coming slowly in. We have today also a public holiday in India, so glad that nevertheless see people in the audience, and really looking forward to our today's discussion. This is the third event in a series of web talks where we are addressing the topic of AI and SDGs. We talked Monday about agriculture. Yesterday we had an interesting session on health and health applications in the AI. And I have to say, the discussions were quite interesting. We tackled a lot of questions. My takeaway was the data sovereignty, collection of data, complexity of projects in AI, but also to have a look at if data is just the solution. It could be topics which could be addressed also today, as this seems to be topics which are dealt with in the overall field of artificial intelligence. AI is seen as the key technology of the future. We see this, we have AI strategies in place, amongst others also from India and Germany, and we have a lot of funding floating into AI. Just want to mention that Germany funds several large research centers, and glad to welcome Milos Kravcik, who is from the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, one of the large centers publicly funded in Germany. He's connected from Berlin, but also glad to welcome Zetu from Jungro Learning, who also received a lot of grants and funding for his startup, which is based in India. Before we step into the topic, let me explain why we as the German Center for Research and Innovation are tackling the question of AI and SDGs. Our role is to connect India and Germany and to establish networks in different fields. We are not just addressing AI, we are working basically in all fields, and we are a network of 18 German research organizations which are present in India. We are funded by the Federal Foreign Office, and the management is done by the DAADs. We are promoting the German research landscape, but more important is that we provide information also on India and Germany. So we are responsible for networking and for enhancing the cooperation between India and Germany, to discuss problems of research problems of common interest. And that's why I'm really, really glad that we have here today expert from Germany, from India, and I hope also our third expert, Samuel from Switzerland, will join in a minute. To the audience, I would like to mention, if you have questions, please raise them in the chat. We will take them up a bit later in the Q&A. This is meant to be an interactive session. And if you need additional information on the Indian and German AI initiatives and on the projects, have a look in the chat. My colleague in the back end will post a couple of interesting links to the project, and also the DWIH website offers a lot of information on the AI research fields in India and Germany. My thanks go to the partners of the Web Talk series. We partnered up with India AI, the National Artificial Intelligence Portal of India, the Bavarian Indian Center, who was partnering up for agriculture, the German Center for Research and Innovation, and today's Web Talk, our main partner is SwissNext India. Thanks to SwissNext for connecting us to Samuel from Taskbase and to broaden our perspectives a bit, and to take it a bit further than the Indo-German approach. If we look into AI, we can say AI in education is already there. A study of Deloitte in China mentioned that AI still is in the developing stage with a steady increase in the 21st century. So if one looks at numbers, first steps has been taken end of the 80s, but it has been really speeding up and taking speed in the 21st century. Interesting is to see that main hubs of AI in education seem to be the US and China. So 2/3 of the investment currently in AI in education is done in the US and China. And I found it quite interesting. So let's have a look today a bit on the other side of the story, and on Germany, and on India, and on Switzerland. AI-based education is still faced with various issues, and to better implement AI-based education, educators and decision makers have to understand AI in a broader learning context. That was also a statement of the study just mentioned. And I found it interesting, and I think we will tackle this today. So if we talk on AI in education, we talk about students, we talk about teachers, we're talking about schools and universities. Or in other words, and there is a white paper out on AI in higher education, which Milos co-authored, they mentioned that we should look into AI support for teachers, that AI and learning analytics is a field which has to be addressed, but also AI and personalized learning and adaptive learning in learning environments. And I think with our panel today, we will cover these interesting aspects of AI. So let us take a look into Germany, Switzerland, and India. Let us take a look into personalized and adaptive learning, assessment and learning analytics, intelligent tutoring and AI mentoring, and let's have a look into higher education and secondary education. Let me shortly introduce the panel of today. So we have with us Dr. Milos Kravcik from the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, based in Berlin. He is a senior researcher at the Educational Technology Lab. He will explain what the lab is about in a few minutes. And he's looking into personalized and adaptive solutions, lifelong competence development, mobile and game-based learning. And he is active in a lot of projects and acquired and participated in projects at the University of Bratislava, but also at Fraunhofer, and a lot of different projects. And we will look today a bit in the Tech for Comp project he's currently developing at his lab. Second speaker is Setu. Setu is the co-founder of an AI-based edtech organization called Jungo Learning. The vision of Jungo is to leverage technology to cater to the unique learning needs of each and every individual child, which is a huge vision for India, bearing the numbers we have in the education system. And I found it interesting that Jungo has got the AI for Good award from NASCOM, and got also grants from USAID, Millennium Alliance, and the government of Canada. So as we're talking AI from SDGs, one can clearly see that Jungo is into looking to improve education in India. Samuel, who hopefully will join in a minute, campaigns for each learner to grow and develop in an environment that focuses on intrinsic motivation. He is working with Taskbase, which is a startup based in Switzerland, and he touched stages in his career of IT, research, banking, and finance and business with the big player in these fields. And yeah, he says that live learning is, or that the right feedback at the right time makes all the difference. What is that about? We will ask him a bit later when he hopefully will join. So let us jump and let us learn a bit more on the speakers on the panel. So Setu, you called Jungru in an interview and GPS for education, which I found online. What is Jungru about, and how one can use this GPS, and how do you support the education system and learners with AI in India?
Thank you, Dr. Lash. So let me begin by first introducing myself and what Jungru Learning is, and give you a bit of background about why I actually started Jungru Learning, and then I will go into the details. So a caveat and a disclaimer before I start off is, I mean, my knowledge is very limited, and whatever I know, I'm speaking from my experience and from my work. If I come across as something that I've said something that is not appropriate or wrong in terms of the AI or technology, please excuse me. So so let me start off. So basically I come from a technology background. I have my master's in theoretical computer science from PSG College of Technology, Coimbatore. So after my master's in theoretical computer science, I went on to work in a consulting firm for a bit, and then I shifted tracks and I went on to become a full-time teacher in a government school, in a public school in Chennai. So I was a Teach for India. Teach for India is a fellowship where we serve as two full-time teachers, 2 years of full-time teaching in a government school in Chennai. So an interesting incident occurred when I was teaching. So the setting and the context of this particular school is that the students come from a low-income community. They don't have access to enough resources. They have challenges in getting access to even basic needs. And then they are coming to the school, and I was a full-time teacher there. So I used to teach every day. I used to make my plans, go in and teach. and so many other things. And then I used to conduct assessments, and then I used to go home, evaluate the usual process, right? I used to know that, okay, the student has got 45 out of 50 marks or 75 out of 100 marks or whatever. But actually, the thing that I was struggling inside my mind was, what am I doing differently the next day when I go into my classroom? What am I doing something that I have more information about the students so that I can help the students better? And then I found out that in my usual teaching learning process, in my assessments, in my evaluations, I was not doing anything radically different. So I started spending time one-on-one with my students after school. So like after school, I used to call my students one-on-one and find out, okay, these are some of the students I want to know about. And I used to start asking many questions and to just find out what they know and what they don't know, right? And one day, one of my student did not know uh, three-digit subtraction with zeros in the ones and the tens place. So imagine 500 minus 398. 500 minus 398, you have to cancel a zero and put it as 10. The other zero, you have to put it as 9. But my student was making both the zeros as 10, and that was the gap that the student had. And I was astonished, right? I mean, this is such a, and this was reflecting in this is a subtraction problem, but this was reflecting in a division by hundreds problem, right? Because division by hundreds, usually you come across this 500 minus 390 or like this, where zeros are there in the ones and the tens place. And I found out that this is the gap that student had, and I used to correct it and then and there, and it was solved. But the thing that struck me was, if I had to spend half an hour with one particular student to find out what they know and what they don't know, how am I going to do this with all the 40 students in my classroom? And how are we going to do this for all the students in my state and all the students in our country, right? How are we going to find out what they know and what they don't know? And already I know that my students are behind the learning gaps. Like if they are at 5th grade, if they are 8th grade, at least there are 2 learning levels behind. At least there are 3 learning levels behind. India is faring very not so great in the PISA learning outcomes. The ACER survey that's being conducted yearly shows that the students are behind grade levels, right? A student in a particular grade has a learning gap in the previous grades. It's just not limited to that particular grade. So that's how we started off. And I thought, if I had to do this with all the 40 students, then I need a technology solution. And me using my technology background, I thought I also discussed with my co-founder. So he's a colleague with me in my college. He has published a machine learning paper. He was with Amazon as a software engineer. So we discussed this problem and we came with a small prototype just to find out what the student knows and what the student does not know. It's kind of an adaptive, assessment of sorts. So basically, the system starts interacting with the student, and whatever I did with the student, right? I asked questions based on what the student is responding. I asked a different question. Based on that, I then found out, okay, this is something that I need to deep dive on, and then I deep dived on. So I knew this all in my mind. So the same thing the system is doing with the student to find out exactly at a very micro level what they know and what they don't know. So we use knowledge graphs at the back end. So there are knowledge graphs. Basically, if mathematics is there, say if you want to know division, you need to know multiplication and subtraction at a very micro level. So there is a demo that I have shared. Maybe participants can look at it later. It's a 10-minute demo. It will explain you how we use this knowledge graph approach. So we use Markov's decision process there, and so on and so forth. So the GPS, right? I used to always say, like, I call ourselves as a GPS for education. Like, if I had to come to Delhi and if I had to come to your office, I land in the airport and I call, and then I say I want to come. Now the first question should be, where are you, Setu? So that I can then guide you to the destination, right? If you don't even know where I am and you just randomly say, like, you take a auto, you take a bus and a train and then reach this destination, I will end up in a mess. And your objective of taking me to the destination will also fail. But instead, if you know where I am at a very micro level, that this is the exact position Sedu is in, now I have to take him here. So now I will guide him, like ask him to take a taxi to this place and then walk a bit and then take a ride, right? So you know how to get me to the destination. We don't know where our students are currently at a very micro level. We just know that they are at this particular grade, but where they are and what they don't know and why they don't know these things is something that we need to understand only then we can cater to the individual learning needs of the student, right? And that is the problem that we are tackling. It's a huge problem. We are starting with assessments, but that is the problem that we are tackling, and that is where we want to achieve. So yeah.
Thanks for that first insight. So it's about assessment, GPS, where the student learner is, and you're focusing on secondary on primary and secondary education, as far as I get it. Yeah, let's switch over to Milos. So we talked about a bit assessment. You focus on higher education in your project, and here we're talking about mentoring. The project title is Personalized Competence Development Through Scalable Mentoring Processes. So it doesn't stop at the primary and secondary level. Could you let us know what you're doing in the research lab and what is your approach for the personalized competence and mentoring?
Thank you very much for the invitation and also for all the support in the preparation of this event. So, my name is Milos Kravčík, and I work in the Education Technology Lab of DFKI, which is the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. It's a big network spread over different places in Germany. The Education Technology Lab is located in Berlin. And we are dealing with different kinds of support for training and learning. What I will focus on today is the learning at the universities. But we also have projects in the area of industrial learning and in the future, maybe also school learning and such. And perhaps at the beginning, I would like to mention that there is already a long tradition at the Education Technology Lab. Here is one example of the system developed in the past, quite a long time ago, where basically it was a kind of intelligent tutoring system and providing some adaptive learning opportunities. It was based on a big ontology of mathematics, of the domain of mathematics, which was created by experts, and also on the learner model, which also was created by the experts and programmers, and which basically represented the knowledge of individual learners of individual concepts. Yeah, and based on this learner model, this learner model was built from the answers of the learners to the exercises they got, and based on those answers and the knowledge of the concepts, the system could give them suitable tasks in the next step, not too difficult and not too simple. Yeah? So that was the idea basically, and here's one kind of screenshot how it could look like. And now today we have the projects like Tech for Comp, AI Edu, and Milky Psy. As I said, this is with different universities in Germany. Tech for Comp is aiming at personalized competence development through scalable mentoring processes. Here we cooperate with several traditional universities, for example, in Leipzig, Dresden, and Chemnitz. And I will talk about it more in a minute. And AI Edu is a project with the Open University in Germany, Universität Hagen, and there we try to support these distance learners in their education. And Milky Psy is a newer project started in this year, and here we somehow go from the support of learning of knowledge, which means something what can be learned from books or materials, to training of skills, and especially psychomotor skills. So I will talk a bit about it later. And this is also with several German universities. So here is what we are doing, or what are our interests and what we are aiming at in the project Tech for Comp. As I said, we already heard that mentoring, individual mentoring is very important. And this is also the aim to provide scalable individual mentoring, because of course, mentors are rare, and usually learners need more mentoring than the mentors can provide them. They don't have so unlimited time for everybody. So this is a problem, of course, because the universities work with limited resources, and the learners need, we already heard also this, that immediate feedback is very important. And therefore, providing feedback, proper right-time feedback, is the key in learning. And here in mentoring, also motivational, emotional, and metacognitive factors play an important role. Yeah, and this is what we must consider when we want to support mentoring with both the traditional approaches based on the domain model, learner model, pedagogy model, which were created by experts, and it required a lot of effort from them. So this is not so easy. And also machine learning, which can process the available data and perhaps save some work of these experts in the future, or already now. Yes, if we have the proper data and we can use it in a suitable way, perhaps we can replace the effort of the experts by this. So what we are trying to investigate is, for example, data analysis. We analyze some discussion forums where, for example, such a sentiment trajectory can be shown, and which can be important to raise the awareness of the teacher about what's going on in the discussion. And if the sentiment gets negative, perhaps it's an impulse to intervene or to check what's going on there more carefully. Then very popular interface, human computer interface solution nowadays is a chatbot, and this is also what plays an important role in Tech for Comp. And we provide different chatbots for different universities and different testbeds, or we develop in the project together with our partners these chatbots, and we have the testbeds in the 3 different areas. It means educational sciences, mathematics, and informatics. And for these different sciences and different pedagogical approaches, we need to develop these chatbots, and also these chatbots can be, of course, supported by other applications that are integrated. In this case, we use especially text analyzer, where students get homeworks. They should write some document about it, and then the text analyzer can analyze their document and generate a graph, RDF graph out of it, and they can compare this graph with the graph generated from some kind of optimal solution or optimal document prepared by the teacher, and comparing these 2 graphs can support reflection of these students. Yes, so this is one approach we use there. And now we are experimenting also with sensors, which play important role in affect detection. And of course, we said that emotions and affect are crucial in mentoring and in learning as well. So basically, we use now mood metric rings, which together with such apps like you can see here can be used to analyze the affect of the students. And of course, the typical response is that if the student gets bored, it means that the task is very simple and the difficulty must be raised. And the other way around, if the student is frustrated, then the task is probably very difficult. And again, one needs to adjust the difficulty so that to get the learner in so-called flow, if we can use this term. Yes, and this graph in the middle, this shows just our intent recognition evaluation, how it can be improved when we do it properly. Yes. Yeah. So this is the illustration. And my last slide is about two other projects, very related ones. One is Milky Psy. Yes, Milky Psy. This is a new one. And AI Edu, this is a project we have with the Open University. And here on the left side, you can see some kind of intelligent assessment where students are, get a question or task, and they are supposed to write short text. And this text is again evaluated and compared with some optimal solution. And also the feedback about the evaluation is given. And in the provided answer, also the right and the wrong concepts are highlighted. The right are green, the wrong are red. And in this way, people also can reflect on it and learn more. As I said, in Milky Psy, this is a different kind of project which started recently. And here, the challenge is to support training of psychomotor skills, where we try to monitor the performance of we focus on two web cases use cases or application cases. One is running, one is human robot collaboration. And here we see that we analyze the performance of the trainee with AI tools. We try to provide or create some models and compare the model from the trainee with the model of some optimal movement from the expert or some professional. And when the match is too different, when we find too large deviations, we can provide feedback where and what to improve. Yes, so we see, if you look at it, that these two projects or cases are actually very similar, because both of them give some tasks to the student or trainee. They expect some performance and then analyze this performance and compare it with some optimal performance, yes, and give feedback. So this is how artificial intelligence can be nowadays used to detect some such kind of errors and provide appropriate feedback to the learners, which is quite interesting, I would say, and challenging, because, as I said, the problem also here with the trainers are the same, that it's difficult to get your own trainer all the time, or these experts are expensive and not so available all the time. So it's good to have also some additional so it's important to have perhaps some alternative solutions that can be that can provide maybe similar feedback, but can be available all the time. Yes, And yeah, that's the challenge. So not really to replace the good teachers and trainers. I think they cannot be replaced so easily by the technology, but to provide some kind of complementary solutions that can help learners and trainees to cultivate their knowledge and skills, competencies. Okay, that would be all for the beginning.
Thank you so much for this short insight in the interesting project. So you mentioned the scope is not to replace teachers and trainers. So Setu, what is your goal? So I mean, India is such a large system. We see dropout rates in schools. What is your system meant to be? Is it for the learner? Is it for the teacher? Is it for the school?
So yeah, so first of all, thank you, Dr. Milos. It was a very good presentation, a very interesting insight. So yeah, very nice. Happy to connect later. So so regarding the question, right? I mean, so I don't think we can replace teachers right now. We are not in the position to replace teachers. The reason being, for me, technology is a means to a solution, and technology is not the solution. So we need to use technology in the perfect and the optimal way in which it solves the pressing needs that we have, right? And when we look at this problem of replacing, so the question of replacing teachers with AI systems or whatever, I don't think we are yet there, and I think it will take a lot of time, because see, education per se is just not about knowledge transfer or just acquiring knowledge, right? You go to a school just not to learn new knowledge, but there are a lot of other aspects that comes in. So there is an aspect of peers that is there. Then there is an aspect of a caregiver inside a classroom who's there for the student, and there are other aspects of holistic education that comes in, where the teacher's role is far more important. But what is happening today is, unfortunately, teachers are spending more time in mundane administrative tasks, in other areas where actually their energy should not be spent. And those are the areas that I think AI and technology can actually help the teachers and reduce the burden of the teachers in actually imparting better education to the students, right? For example, say if so imagine there is a first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. So a student enters a first grade. So now if the student gets 40 out of 100 marks, the student is passed to the second grade. But the student, so imagine student studies just 4 out of 10 concepts in the first grade, he or she is pushed to the second grade. Now in the second grade, new set of 10 concepts comes in, and even there, if the student gets 4 out of 10 concepts right, then the student is pushed to the third grade. But there is a lag of 6 concepts here, 6 concepts here, and go on. And when the students goes up the levels, the learning gaps increases. But now if a teacher in a 5th grade cannot go to the first grade levels and find out what exactly they don't know, it is very impossible for the teacher to do it at scale, right? There we can now help the teacher in finding, okay, these are the top 3 concepts that you need to teach your students. How you are going to teach is up to you, because you know your students better. But these are the top 3 things that you should teach your students. Or if you're going to give a homework for the students, each and every student getting the same set of questions might be boring to the student, right? We need to maintain the engagement of the student so that they get questions of what they need. So in those cases, a personalized worksheet in a mobile or a system where the student gets a worksheet and the student starts doing a worksheet, and where they attempt questions at their own level, will be much beneficial for the teacher also, because it is complementing to what they are doing inside the classroom. So there are many areas where AI and technology can actually help the teachers and reduce their burden. But the core aspect of a teacher presence inside a classroom, or an educator's presence in the life of an learner is very much needed, is what I would say.
Okay, thank you so much. I would ask the audience if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We are glad to take them up. So this is meant to be also a session for you, interactive. Milos, I would have a question. So you're working with higher education institutions, and if you look at the list, it's the top institutions in Germany. Will your project contribute to equity in education, or will it foster the digital divide in education, as there might just have students access to this wonderful mentoring who are in good universities, or what is the approach as you're also publicly funded?
Yeah, I think the aim is to develop the solutions we develop some prototypes, yes, of such solutions that perhaps later on can be further elaborated and brought to the market. Yeah, and of course we work with different kinds of universities. As I said, we work with the universities in the eastern part of Germany. We work with the Open University in the middle of Germany. We work in some other universities in the western or southern part of Germany. Yes, so basically, I think we develop or try to develop prototypes that can be further, as said, elaborated and developed and brought to the market. But I think this should be available for all the universities or schools that are interested in these solutions. It shouldn't be some kind of I never thought about that it should cause some digital divide or something. Interesting question, but it shouldn't be the case, yes, because this project, the German ministry is supporting different kinds of projects, different universities in Germany, and we are just a small part of that. So similar research is going on definitely at different places, different universities, and I think the time will show which solutions will be successful and perhaps spread wider. Yeah.
So it's basically open access, and if an Indian university would be interested in using your tools, you would be open. It's an open access data project.
Yes, both data and our outcomes, our results are openly available, and everybody can get access to that.
I think that's good news for the audience. We have Germans and Indians in the audience, as I see it, so that the project is not a closed shop for the universities and that there is open access. Zetu, you are a startup and you're into business, and businesses have to earn money. No, so what about you? Is this a wonderful tool you've developed just for private schools, available private schools chains in India, or you intend to scale it up all over India?
So we intend to work with, so in fact, when we started off, one of our important people whom we work with is an NGO, is a non-government organization in Chennai called Bhumi. So Bhumi, in fact, works with after-school centers and shelter homes in Chennai. So what we are doing with Bhumi is as a live example, right? I'll just mention the use case, right? So before our intervention with Bhumi, so there are shelter homes, there are after-school centers where Bhumi does their intervention. So there are volunteers and there are community centers where the volunteers go into the community centers and interact with these people, interact with these students, and try to give better education for the students. So Bhumi has a baseline program, a baseline assessment, and an endline assessment. So how typically this assessment happens is when there is a pen and paper assessment, the student answers this. This is a 20-minute assessment. Then they come back, put everything in an Excel sheet. They enter manually. Then the sheet tells whether you should give a level up or a level down paper. And then they again go back and conduct it. It's a back and forth process of manual entry and then finding out what the student knows in a manual way. So now the baseline assessment is done. Then they do analysis and find out what are the things that they should be intervening with the students. So now we have replaced the entire 1 week assessment of a 45-minute per level assessment into just a 20-minute adaptive assessment, where the students take up the adaptive assessment in a mobile device or any device, and we tell at the spot immediately that these are the things that you need to concentrate, and these are the things you need to concentrate at a student level, at a classroom level, and at a program level, right? And how Bhumi gets access to these devices to these students is through a volunteering program that they have, which they have tied up with all the corporates. So the corporates, and they just need a device, and that's about it. And then the adaptivity and the assessment and the system takes care of everything. So in fact, they are one of our strongest supporters. And so my aim is not just to scale it to obviously for business reasons we need to start somewhere, right? So we are starting, and we are working with a lot of, so we are a B2B company. We don't directly work with schools, but we work with companies who work with schools. We work with NGOs who have access to students, and then we provide our platform to them so that they can get access to our platform, and then they work it. So our aim is, but we need to find the means and resources to achieve this. But our aim is just not limited to one particular geography or location, but in fact, we want to, if there's an opportunity, we want to go global as well. So yeah.
Global is a good word, and I have a question here in the chat. So what common problems students come across in higher education, but also in secondary education level in Germany? And would this be relevant also in the Indian context, but we could take it also the other way around? Is it specific? Is there something specific which could be relevant to the German context? So Milos, do you think your system and the problems you're addressing, is it more global, or is it really something European specific?
No, I think it's not European specific. It's a general problem at different universities worldwide. Yeah, and we see that you said that many solutions come from the USA, from China. Yeah, so they are very successful in this era. So yes, of course, the problems, I think, are similar at different universities all over the world. So I think solutions can be also used in different parts of the world. I guess there can be some cultural differences, of course, but as we are trying to develop adaptive systems, it means that they should be also solvable, and the system should be customizable for different settings. Yes.
Thank you so much for that reply. So I think we have an interesting question in the chat. So there is the question: what is innovative on the two approaches? No, from Tech for Comp and from Jungru, in a time when every student is exhausted, sitting with the mobile phone, looking at webinars. So what is the added value AI can contribute and step in, and where you would ease the online life of students, as especially in India, we are now in the 18th month of sitting at home and learning from home, but not just in India, also the German universities just finished their third online semester. So what is the add-on? And maybe Setu, you kick it off, and then Milos, you could add on that.
So unique and interesting idea. So I think so. One thing that we should is surely not over exhaust the students by bombarding them with a lot of digital content and asking them. We need to customize it, and that's where adaptivity and personalization comes into the picture, right? By personalization adaptivity, we save a lot of time. We say a 50 question or 100 question assessment is just broken down into 30 question of sorts, where a lot of time is saved. But these are minor aspects where we can optimize. But the bigger question is unique and innovative ideas in the age of online teaching is we need to so basically a couple of interesting incidents that I saw is students are just not spending time sitting in front. I saw a couple of just offshoot, just not related to AI or technology, but teachers ask the student to get a lot of mobility is happening. But I think the peer interaction and network effects, right? If we can somehow build some strong network effects inside the teaching learning process in itself, where the student interaction, because students miss the peer interaction a lot. I've seen that students are isolated, and this is the time in which they should be actually interacting, be out in the playgrounds playing. And we need to figure out, I mean, it's a compromise from the ideal solution, but we need to figure out if we can find ways to increase these network effects and see if there are collaborative tasks that can be done, between the students, and sort of giving them tasks that they can figure out themselves, not just sitting in front of the computer or Googling, but going out and figuring out other things, right? So those are some of the aspects that I think we should be doing. And AI in particular actually saves a lot of time for the teachers, for the students, and getting into personalization adaptivity saves a lot of time. So that is something that we should surely focus on, like optimizing for time and not getting the student to be bored, and not making it too difficult or too easy questions, but making it challenging enough for the students to stick to whatever they are doing is something that we should surely take care from the pedagogy and the curriculum standpoint. Yeah.
Thank you, Setu. So Milos, over to you. How your approach, how could have helped that the German students or the Indian students being enrolled in a German university, sitting somewhere in Karnataka and following on boring online classes at a particular university in Germany. So what is the added value on the mentoring approach?
Yeah, as I said, the added value is the right feedback at the right time in the right form, I would say. Yeah, if the feedback is not provided in such a way, it may be perhaps useless. Yeah, it needs to be in the current context, so that I don't forget about what I am currently doing, and if such a feedback is even adaptive and personalized, so that it somehow takes into account what I know, so I can understand the feedback, I can process it, then I think it can help me to make another step in my learning. It can it can tell me whether I am going in the right way when I am learning successfully or not. Yes, and it's crucial in learning. So I think that's the main value from my point of view for the learner.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Yeah. I've learned over the last 2 days, but not just over the last 2 days, that AI, it's all about data. No, you need the data to feed into the machines to learn. And you stated, Milos, in your paper that data protection is key for implementing AI in higher education. And this is also always a worry one has if even one looks at China with all this apps set up there. So what is about data protection in AI is a really sensitive issue, because we are talking about here also personal data. So how you address this issue in your project, and would hand over to Milos, and then maybe Setu, you could add on to that.
Yes, it is a very important issue, and you know that in Europe a lot of attention is paid to that. We have some strict regulations for that. So, of course, it's not so easy to get the data that you want to work with. And this is also often a kind of hurdle you must to overcome to proceed with your solutions, because yeah, it's not so easy to get valuable data, and yeah, you cannot proceed in such a direction as fast as you would like to sometimes as a developer. But on the other side, it is also important that the user has the control about his or her data, and he or she can control the data provided for some purposes and for which, and this is directly related with the functionality that is provided back. Yeah, so perhaps some functionality will require some data, and if you don't provide this data, you don't get the functionality. So you must make your decision and whether or not you want to get it, and what do you want to pay for it. Yes, and yes, also this is one of the ethical challenges, and related to that is also the delegation of decisions. We must make many decisions all the time, and we know that some decisions are made automatically by our emotional system. Some decisions are made by our rational system, requiring more effort, more energy. And yeah, some decisions can be delegated also to some agents, yes, so to some programs. And this is also an important question. But this should be decided by everybody self, yeah. And yeah, so I think important thing is to enable this kind of user control and delegation of decisions, and then hopefully the user should be happy if he or she has this opportunity.
So it should be up to the user if he decides to let taken the decision by an AI-based deep learning machine. Yes, Setu, how you are dealing with data? I mean, I learned in a couple of discussions, for instance, in health, that India has huge data sets which are valuable. How you're dealing with the sensitive issue of data if it comes to personal data in higher education or in secondary and primary education?
Sure. No, I think personal data should be protected at all costs, right? There is no two ways about it. Personal data should be protected at all costs, and I'm for it. But I think there are other data that can actually be used to help enhance the quality of the application and quality of the technology in itself. And those are some of the things that we should encourage to actually use. In fact, so what we are trying to do is when we started off, we don't use machine learning. So we use a technology called reinforcement learning. So reinforcement learning is adapting on the go based on the environment. So the knowledge graph that I was talking about is the input for our system. So the knowledge graph is a set of related concepts of all the topics in a particular subject, and then that is served as input for the system. And then as and when the students start interacting with the system based on the time spent, based on whether the student has guessed it or not, based on carelessness probability, based on guess probability, based on the time he spent, based on the previous responses to all the questions that the student has answered. So based on various parameters, the system decides which is the next best thing that should be given to the student at that particular context, given these are the constraints, right? And so we don't in fact use any of machine learning here for this particular thing. In fact, that can actually create a bias because see, India is so huge, and if one particular set of students in one particular geography behaves in a certain way, say makes mistakes in a certain problem in a certain way, then that can actually impact the model in itself. We need diverse data to achieve that. And that's why one of the reasons why we are using a knowledge graph based approach, where we don't use user data actually to feed into the system right now at the start, but we are starting off at somewhere. But my larger point is personal data should be protected at all costs. There is no two ways about it. But and then the user, I agree with Dr. Milos completely. The user should have the control to share or not share what they are willing to share. But there are academic datas like the marks of the student, anonymized data, the user behavior, the engagement pattern, the answering pattern of the students. These are some of the things that can actually enrich our applications and actually make sure that we provide better outcomes and better deliverables for the end user, right? And if that can be achieved, then that should be encouraged. And we need to find the perfect line to make sure that this is not in conflict with the other.
Thank you so much for that valuable insight and the difference in between machine learning and your knowledge based approach you're following. Yeah. Thanks for the engaging discussion. We come slowly to an end. It's almost an hour. I can't believe it. It went so fast. So a last question to you, Milos and Setu. Let's have a look at the future. we were struggling looking up for AI in education. No, there are all these apps, learning apps, but there's not really AI behind. Is AI in education the future of education, or will it stay a niche? Where do you see AI in education in Germany in 20 years and say in India? Maybe Milos, you kick it off.
Well, 20 years is probably too long time to predict. You know that currently the changes are so quick that it's difficult to predict anything, especially for the future. So yes, role of the future. I think what is perhaps important to consider is that especially for in such cases where people, like in lifelong learning, when people don't have anymore their teachers, their trainers, and must learn on their own, it is important to get some kind of support from technology, for example. And also, it is important that already before at the university or at the school, people or students, pupils learn some kind of self-regulated learning skills. Yes, so that we had it in some previous projects that this is not really very well supported at our universities and schools. People, cannot develop these self-regulated skills very well because they just get some tasks, commands, and they must do what they are set to do. So more kind of motivation, some kind of maybe project-based learning and such things, so which have been already tried and brought, I think, some positive results. This is important to support, and and I think this includes, for example, such skills like planning, goal setting, reflection, and all these skills that belong to self-regulation. And when this can be somehow cultivated, I think it will have a strong impact also for lifelong learning. And what the AI can bring is definitely new opportunities. Yeah, we see that there are many interesting solutions nowadays that were not available before, and can somehow enhance the spectrum of opportunities for learning, and it definitely have a consequence also in bringing new business models for learning, that people don't need to just study at the university or the whole course or whatever, but usually they have some specific aims and they want to learn something quickly. Yes, and this may be also one of the reasons, for example, why this dropout at, for example, open universities or other institutions is so high, that maybe the aim, the original aim is not the same as is maybe considered by the institution. Yes, if one doesn't make the whole course, just some part of it, then we must accept that. Yes, and of course, there are also individual differences. I know about some study at an open university somewhere that different groups of people have different requirements. They have different regimes, and it makes a difference whether one is single, whether one has a partner, when one has a child, how they can study. Yes, and this already makes also impact on the outcomes, and this can be recognized relatively early and predicted by AI technology, for example. Yes, AI can do categorization, prediction. So these tools can help in recognizing some issues relatively early and yeah, to initiate some kind of interventions if needed. Yes.
Thank you so much. So a lot of space for growth in Germany for AI, not just in different fields. And yeah, just at the beginning, Setu, how would your take on India?
No, I think it's going to be huge for sure. It is. See, in India there are people who don't even have access to basic education, right? And there, with the advent of technology, with mobile access, with Geo coming in, and with one of the good things to have happened in this challenging and difficult times is that technology access has gone up. So there are people who don't even have access to basic education, and imagine they getting an access to a device, and personalized learning, personalized and adaptive learning can happen there, and knowledge, some sort of knowledge gaining can happen to even the remotest parts of the country. Is in itself is a huge boost, right? And I see this happening, and for sure this is only going to increase. And what I see is that the role of the teachers to more of a facilitators of sorts in the future. I don't know if it's going to be 10, 20, 50, 100, but teachers are very important. There is no two ways of replacing the teachers, but the role of what they are trying to do in terms of not just giving knowledge to the students, but as a facilitator or as a caregiver inside the classroom is going to change. Where AI and technology can come in is to give access to people who don't even have access, to give knowledge to people who don't have access to this, and also to give personalized and adaptive education to the students on what they know and what they want, right? That is something that we can surely help, and this is going to be the future for sure. Yeah.
So, student-centered learning approach. No, that's what you're also told. Yeah, no. So the AI in education is definitely the future. My feeling on things is the discussion just starts on all these things. We got two really good pilot projects here who had a look more into the user-centered approaches and teachers. We did not tackle today the how AI could help institutions in assessment and drop out all these questions. So we have things to discuss further. So thanks so much for joining today's web session. Thanks to the audience for the questions which have been put in the chat. I think it's a future topic, the whole topic of AI. I think we gained today a bit of better understanding in the field of education, where the challenges are lying, data protection, access to data, and what is the future also looking like. So thanks to the panelists, thanks to you, Miloš and Setu, for your useful insights. Thanks to my team in the background who helped setting up the web talk series, and thanks to the audience, of course, for the questions. The recording of the web talk series will be uploaded in the next couple of days. We had 10 speakers, international partner and partner institutions, and more information on all the topics we discussed, AI in agriculture, education, and health, can be found at the DWIH website, which is a gateway also and will guide you further. So I also want to mention we had a startup on the panel, so we have a next upcoming event where we are addressing these issues also, 27th of August. So have a look at the website, but please also look up the interesting projects of Miloš and Setu. They are available for more questions on a one-to-one via email. So thanks so much for joining us today. Have a good day, take care, and hope to see you, listen to you on one or the other occasions. So bye-bye and have a nice day.
Thank you very much for organizing it.
Thank you. Bye.